It is 8:15 p.m. on a Friday night, and the police are already leaving. Two uniformed officers stand in the hallway of an apartment complex in Bremerton, Washington, closing their notebooks. They look bored. To them, the woman trembling in the doorway isn't a victim. She is just an overreacting girlfriend. They look at the empty parking spot. They look at the apartment with no signs of forced entry. And they offer the standard line that has doomed so many missing persons cases before they even begin. He is an adult, ma'am. It isn't illegal to disappear. Maybe he just needs some space. They tell her to stop worrying. They tell her to go inside, lock the door, and get some sleep. They step into the elevator, the metal door sliding shut, sealing off the investigation before it ever starts. They assume Mark Henderson has walked away from his life voluntarily. They assume Elena is safe. They are wrong on both counts. Because while the officers drive back to the station to file a civil matter report, Elena is already preparing to do the one thing they refuse to do: follow the evidence. The rain in the Pacific Northwest doesn't just fall, it erases. It turns dirt roads into rivers and washes away fingerprints, tire tracks, and mistakes. It is 3 a.m. on a Tuesday, and Elena is standing in the middle of this deluge, miles from the nearest paved road. She shouldn't be here. The police told her to stay home. They told her to sleep. They told her that grown men are allowed to walk away from their lives if they want to. But the blue dot on her phone screen tells a different story. Elena is shivering, her flashlight beam cutting a weak, shaking tunnel through the suffocating darkness of the Tahuya State Forest. She isn't looking for a signal. There isn't one out here. She is following a ghost. According to the digital history stored in the cloud, her ex-boyfriend, Jason, was standing in this exact spot 3 nights ago. He told her he was sleeping. He told the police he was home all night. But the GPS data from his phone says he drove 40 miles into the wilderness, turned down a logging road that isn't on any map, and stopped here for exactly 50 minutes. She takes a step forward, the mud sucking at her boots. She swings the light to the left, scanning the dense wall of fern and pine. Nothing. She swings it to the right. And then her heart hammers against her ribs. The undergrowth has been trampled. The ferns are broken, matted down by something heavy. In the center of a small clearing, the earth is different. It is darker, looser. It is a mound of fresh, wet dirt, roughly 6 feet long. Elena drops to her knees, not caring about the cold mud soaking through her jeans. She doesn't want to dig. She prays she is wrong. But as she claws at the wet earth, her fingers brush against something cold and metallic. It's a watch, a silver Seiko, the one she bought Mark for his birthday. She doesn't scream. The air just leaves her lungs, replaced by the crushing realization that while the police were filing paperwork, she was having coffee with a murderer. To understand how Elena ended up on her knees in the middle of a forest, staring at the shallow grave of the man she loved, we have to rewind the clock 48 hours. We have to go back to the moment the perfect life began to crack. Mark Henderson was the kind of guy who didn't have enemies. At 26, he was a software developer, a creature of habit who called his mother every Sunday and meal prepped his lunches. He was safe. He was steady. For Elena, after a turbulent and controlling relationship with her ex, Jason, Mark was a breath of fresh air. He didn't track her phone. He didn't demand to know who she was with. He just loved her. It is Friday, 6 p.m. The timeline of the disappearance begins now. Elena is driving to Mark's apartment for their weekly movie night. The plan is simple: Thai food, a Marvel movie, and relaxing after a long week. She sends him a text at 6:15 p.m. Pad Thai secured. Be there in 10. The text delivers. It is never read. When Elena pulls into the complex, the first anomaly strikes her. Mark's parking spot, number 4B, is empty. His silver Honda Civic is missing. Panic doesn't set in immediately. Confusion does. Mark knew she was coming. He is precise about time. Maybe he made a last-minute beer run? She parks in the visitor lot and walks up the 3 flights of stairs. She knocks. Silence. She knocks again, louder this time. Nothing. She uses her spare key. As the door swings open, the apartment is bathed in silence. It's dark, but the ambient light from the street lamps outside casts long shadows across the living room. "Mark?" she calls out. No answer. She walks into the kitchen, and that is when the confusion turns into a cold knot of dread. On the counter, a cutting board is set out. A knife sits next to a half-chopped onion. A pan of oil is sitting cold on the stove. Mark was in the middle of cooking. Beside the cutting board sits his wallet. Elena opens it. His driver's license, his credit cards, and $40 in cash are all there. People who leave voluntarily take their money. They take their ID. And they usually finish chopping the onion. Elena calls Mark's phone. It goes straight to voicemail. She calls again. Voicemail. She paces the small living room, her mind racing through innocent explanations that are quickly dwindling. At 8:15 p.m., she makes the call that no one ever thinks they will have to make. She dials 911. The police response is standard, bordering on dismissive. 2 officers arrive, take a quick look around, and shrug. They see a clean apartment. No blood on the walls. No shattered glass. No signs of a struggle. To them, this isn't a crime scene. It's a breakup scene. "He probably got cold feet, ma'am," the older officer says, clicking his pen. "Maybe he just needed some space. It's not illegal to go for a drive and not tell your girlfriend." "He didn't take his wallet," Elena argues, her voice rising. "He was making dinner." "He has a car," the officer counters. "Maybe he has a second credit card. Give it 24 hours. He'll turn up." They leave. Elena is left standing in the silent apartment, the half-chopped onion still sitting on the counter as a mocking testament to a life interrupted. She feels entirely alone. But 20 minutes later, a knock at the door breaks the silence. She opens it to find Jason, her ex-boyfriend, standing there with a look of deep concern. "I saw the cop cars," Jason says, breathless. "I was just driving by on my way to the gym. Is everything okay?" It seems like a miracle. Jason, the man she broke up with a year ago, the man who had always been a little too intense, a little too protective, is here. He steps inside, looking around. When Elena tells him Mark is missing, Jason doesn't dismiss her like the police. He gasps. He hugs her. He looks at the wallet on the table and says the words she needs to hear. "This isn't right. Mark wouldn't do this." For the rest of the night, Jason is the model of support. He stays with her. He helps her call hospitals. He drives her around the neighborhood, scanning the dark streets for Mark's silver Honda. He is the hero. He is the rock. Elena is so grateful for his presence that she doesn't notice the way he is looking at her. She doesn't notice that he isn't really looking for Mark. He is looking at her reaction. He is measuring her panic. She is letting the fox guard the henhouse, and she has no idea that the man holding her hand is the reason Mark is never coming home. The sun rises on Saturday morning, but it brings no clarity, only a gray, drizzling fog. The timeline has now reached the critical window, the first 24 hours. Mark has been missing for 12 hours. Elena hasn't slept. She is sitting on Mark's couch, staring at the front door, waiting for it to open. Jason is still there. He has made coffee. He is sitting in the armchair scrolling through his phone, offering reassuring platitudes every few minutes. "We'll find him," he says. He probably just had a breakdown. Stress does crazy things to people. At 11:42 a.m., Elena's phone buzzes on the coffee table. The sound is like a gunshot in the quiet room. She lunges for it. Her screen lights up with a text message. The sender is Mark. Elena's heart leaps into her throat. Relief washes over her so primarily that she almost drops the phone. She unlocks it, her thumbs hovering over the screen, ready to type, ready to ask where he is. But then she reads the message. "I need space. Don't come looking for me. I'm sorry." The air leaves the room. Elena reads it again. "I need space. Don't come looking for me. I'm sorry." It's cold. It's final. It explains everything and nothing at the same time. She shows the phone to Jason. He reads it, sighs, and shakes his head. "I hate to say this, Elena," he says, his voice dripping with faux sympathy, "but this looks like he wanted out. Maybe he wasn't the guy you thought he was." The police would see this text and close the case. It is a confession of voluntary departure. But Elena stares at the glowing letters, and something scratches at the back of her mind. It's the syntax. Mark is a texter who uses emojis. He sends long, rambling paragraphs. He never uses periods at the end of a single sentence. And he calls her L, always. This text calls her nothing. It sounds robotic. It sounds drafted. "I want to see where it came from," Elena says, standing up. She walks over to Mark's desk and opens his laptop. She knows his password. It's his birthday. Jason stiffens in the armchair. "Elena, don't torture yourself," he says, shifting his weight. He made his choice. She ignores him. She logs into his iMessage account on the MacBook. The text is there, synced to the cloud, but because she is on the desktop view, she can see the application activity log in the sidebar. The message was sent at 11:42 a.m. But at 11:40 a.m., 2 minutes prior, the log shows that the Notes app was opened on Mark's phone. Why would a man who is running away open his Notes app 2 minutes before breaking up with his girlfriend? Unless he was copying and pasting something he had already written. Unless someone else was writing it for him. Elena spins around to look at Jason. "This doesn't make sense," she says. "He opened Notes right before he sent this." Jason stands up. He walks over to her, placing his hands on her shoulders. "Elena, stop. You're spiraling. Let's go get some food. You need to eat." As he steps closer, Elena looks down. For the first time, she really looks at him. She sees his jeans. She sees his shoes. Jason is wearing heavy Timberland-style work boots. And they are caked in mud. Not just any mud, reddish, clay-heavy mud. The city of Bremerton is paved. It's concrete and asphalt. The only place within 50 miles with red clay like that is the deep forest to the west. "Where were you this morning?" Elena asks. Her voice is quiet, trembling. Jason doesn't blink. "I went for a hike," he says smoothly. "Needed to clear my head before I came over. I was worried about you." It's a good lie, but it's not enough. A terrifying clarity is beginning to dawn on Elena. She remembers the quote, coincidental arrival last night. She remembers how calm he has been. She remembers the year they spent together, how he always needed to know where she was. And then, she remembers the setting. Back when they were dating, Jason had insisted they share their Google location with each other. For safety, he had said. When they broke up, Elena had immediately turned hers off. She assumed he did the same. But Jason was arrogant. Jason was the type of man who believed he was smarter than everyone else. "I'm going to the bathroom," Elena says. She forces a smile. It is the hardest acting performance of her life. She walks into the bathroom, locks the door, and turns on the faucet to mask the sound of her frantic tapping. She pulls out her phone. She opens Google Maps. She taps on her profile picture and selects location sharing. Her breath hitches. There, at the bottom of the list, is Jason's icon. He never revoked access. He is still sharing his location with her. She taps his icon. The map zooms out. She clicks on Timeline for yesterday. The blue line appears, tracing his movements. She sees him at his apartment. She sees him driving to Mark's complex at 2:30 a.m. on Friday night. The blue line shows him sitting outside Mark's building for 30 minutes, right when Mark would have been asleep. And then the line moves. It doesn't go back to his house. It goes west. It leaves the city. It winds onto the highway, speeds past the suburbs, and enters the deep green expanse of the Tahuya State Forest. The dot moves down a logging road and stops. It hovers in the middle of nowhere for 50 minutes. Elena stares at the screen. The coordinates are burned into her retina. He was there. He was burying him. Suddenly, the doorknob rattles. "Elena?" Jason's voice comes through the wood. "You okay in there?" She almost drops the phone. She is trapped in a bathroom with a man who has fresh mud on his boots and a dead man's timeline on his phone. If she confronts him now, she dies. If she calls the police, they won't get here in time, and they might not even believe her. She needs to get out. She needs to get to that forest. I'm fine. She calls back, her voice cracking. Just stomachache. I think I need to go home and lie down. She flushes the toilet. She washes her face with cold water. She unlocks the door. Jason is standing right there in the hallway, blocking her path. He studies her face. He is looking for the lie. Elena looks him in the eye and lies better than she ever has in her life. I just want to sleep, Jason. I'll call you later. He hesitates. For a second, the predator behind his eyes flares up. But then he nods. Okay, I'll call you in a few hours. He steps aside. Elena walks out of the apartment, down the stairs, and into her car. She doesn't speed away until she turns the corner. Then, she floors it. She types the coordinates from Jason's timeline into her own GPS. 47 degrees 22 N, 122 degrees 50 W. Destination, the middle of the woods. The drive takes an hour, but it feels like a lifetime. As Elena leaves the city limits, the streetlights fade, replaced by the towering shadows of pine trees. The rain intensifies, hammering against her windshield trying to warn her to turn back, but she can't. The police told her Mark ran away. Jason told her Mark abandoned her. She is the only person on Earth who knows that Mark is waiting for her in the dark. She turns off the highway onto the gravel logging road. Her car bounces and skids. The GPS signal flickers, the blue dot struggling to connect with the satellite. Arrived, the robotic voice announces. She stops the car. She grabs the flashlight. She walks into the woods. We are back where we started. The rain, the mud, the watch. Finding the watch breaks something inside Elena. She scrambles backward, crab-walking through the mud, away from the shallow grave. She makes it back to her car, locks the doors, and floors the accelerator. She drives until the bars on her phone return. She dials 911. This time, her voice isn't polite. It is the primal scream of a woman who has looked into the abyss. I found him, she screams at the dispatcher. My ex-boyfriend killed him. I found the body. Send everyone. The police do not ignore this call. Within 40 minutes, the quiet logging road is a sea of red and blue strobe lights. Crime scene tape is strung between the ancient pines. Forensics teams in white Tyvek suits set up floodlights that turn the night into a sterile, bright operating room. They confirm what Elena already knows. The body in the grave is Mark Henderson. The autopsy will later reveal he was strangled, likely ambushed in his own kitchen while cooking dinner. But the most damning scene is happening 20 miles away. At 4 a.m., a SWAT team stacks up outside Jason's apartment. They breach the door. They find Jason asleep in his bed, or pretending to be. He puts on a performance of shock and outrage, demanding to know why they are harassing a grieving friend. He plays the role of the innocent bystander perfectly, right up until they open the trunk of his car. Inside the spare tire, well, wrapped in a plastic grocery bag, are Mark's house keys. Next to them is a burner phone used to make the initial fake text. And in the glove box, they find a printed map of the Tuhuya State Forest. Jason sits in the interrogation room later that morning. He is calm. He is arrogant. He leans back in his chair, crossing his arms, confident that there is no witness, no weapon, no DNA that can definitively tie him to the murder. He looks at the detective and smiles. She's crazy, he says. Elena is obsessive. She's trying to frame me because I didn't want to get back together with her. The detective doesn't say a word. He simply slides a piece of paper across the metal table. It isn't a confession. It isn't a witness statement. It is a printout of a Google Maps timeline. Jason looks down. He sees the blue line leaving his apartment. He sees the stop at Mark's house. He sees the long drive into the woods. He sees the 50-minute stop at the exact coordinates where the body was found. The color drains from his face. The arrogance evaporates, replaced by the terrifying realization of his own oversight. He thought he was a genius. He thought he had scrubbed the physical world clean. But he forgot the digital footprints he left behind. The very surveillance tool he had used to control Elena was now the chain that bound him. The trial was short. The evidence was overwhelming. The jury didn't need a confession. The satellite data told the story minute by minute. Jason Miller was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. He sits in a cell today, maintaining his innocence, a narcissist to the bitter end. Elena never returned to the apartment she shared with Mark's memories. She moved cities. She changed her name. She keeps her location services permanently turned off. The trauma of that night, the half-chopped onion, the robotic text, the mud on the boots, will never fully leave her. She learned the hardest lesson in the most brutal way possible. Sometimes the monster isn't hiding under the bed. Sometimes he's holding your hand, helping you look for the man he just buried. Mark Henderson's timeline ended in those woods, but the truth didn't stay buried with him. It clawed its way out, guided by a satellite signal and the intuition of a woman who refused to believe that love just disappears without a trace.